morning, children, coming to you virtually from my computer to yours. When this video gets to you, it'll be June 1st, which means we only have a couple more weeks left of our 2019 to 2020 school year. I know it's been a rough year for all of us, but I'm sure this will all be over in August, and I'll be able to see your beautiful faces as they traverse their way from 4th grade over to 5th grade. Now, I'm afraid that we're running a bit dry in this year's curriculum since this is an elementary school class, which means most of it requires you to be in person to do it. So I thought it would be a fun idea to explore some of next year's curriculum that you guys will be learning that Mr. Johnson so kindly provided for us. He put it in my P.O. box this morning, so let's get started. Well, I didn't expect this much of a jump from next year's curriculum from here, but considering we don't have much better to do, this week's topic will be on religious studies. Most of the religious conflicts that people know about these days happen in the Middle East, but let's just say that's a conversation that you'll have with your teachers when you're older. So, instead, we are going to be talking about India and Pakistan. Located all the way over in South Asia, these two countries reside in the Indian subcontinent, which consists of countries you may know like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Nepal. But today we're just going to be focusing on those first two countries along with a little region known as Kashmir. Kashmir, a region in the Indian subcontinent, not the wool from a goat that lives in the Himalayas, borders India and Pakistan. It has a gorgeous landscape and it houses the majority of the waterways that travel through the Indian subcontinent, meaning it is highly coveted by a lot of people, including India and Pakistan, especially considering they don't have access to a lot of clean drinking water. But why do India and Pakistan think they deserve Kashmir? I mean, there are probably plenty of countries that we would benefit from controlling, but we don't, at least in the 21st century. Well, there's this country called Britain, and a couple centuries ago, they decided they wanted a bunch more economic and political control over the world than they already did. So they decided to start conquering pretty much the entire globe, including the Indian subcontinent. During the mid-20th century, Britain and a lot of other powers that controlled other countries started to pull their influence from these countries. And let's just say when it came to Britain doing that, they were kind of hit or miss. With the Indian subcontinent, Britain took a while to decide what to do with it, which led an already very passion-fueled population to become even more passionate. And instead of taking that passion out on Britain, they took it out on each other. This is where the tension between Pakistan and India started. Where Pakistan is now was predominantly Islam, while where India is now was predominantly Hindu. This led to the two religious groups starting to blame each other for what was happening to the subcontinent, leading to a lot of fear and tension in those regions. When Britain finally started laying borders, they separated between where the Hindu and Islam populations mainly resided. However, they cut through two major cities, Bengal and Punjab, which had a strong mix of the two religions. This led to a lot of people being displaced and becoming religious minorities. And unfortunately, when that happens, people become afraid, and fear can lead to violence. From 1947 to 1965, almost 1 million people, this really isn't any nicer. A lot of people fell to the violence. Britain didn't just mess up there, they also messed up with Kashmir. Despite being predominantly Muslim now, Kashmir generally had a mix of culture and religion, leading to Britain being indecisive about whether they should give it to Pakistan or India. So instead, they left it to the two countries to decide for themselves. For previously mentioned reasons, neither side wanted to give Kashmir up, and for the past 70 years, they still haven't. The United Nations stepped in shortly after the violence between the two countries started and set up a line of control, which was a sort of compromise that gave one half of the region to each country and a bit to China a couple years later, but they're not important. Unfortunately, neither country was quite happy with the compromise, so they continued to fight over the line. And at one point, it got so bad, they started testing and building these big, scary weapons called nuclear bombs. But don't worry, kids, no one got hurt from them using it. They just put the countries in a stalemate where neither can feel like they back down, leading to 70 years of conflict. And that's where our conflict between India and Pakistan is nowadays. And you may be asking yourself, we didn't really talk a lot about religion during this conflict overview. Well, truthfully, kids, this isn't really a religious conflict. It's a conflict over the economic and political control over a country. Sure, a lot of fear in the population that heightened the conflict in the beginning was motivated by religion, but that's not why the conflict started in the first place. Most people just misperceive that fact because one of the defining differences between Pakistan and India is that one of them is Islam predominantly and one of them is Hindu predominantly. Well, it looks like time's up on our history time block. Now it's time for science. Curriculum courtesy of Mrs. Pearson. Now, it looks like today we are going to be learning about the chemistry behind different chemical compounds, some of which you've probably heard of. Starting with mustard gas. Sounds fun, right?